I never thought. I mean, I knew it was going to happen eventually, but I never thought that I would be doing this video in 2025. But they always say that life you never know, and you should never take life for granted, and you should never, ever, ever assume anything because there's a little bit of a ticker that's on our head that we don't invisibly can't see, but it's there. Uh, I woke up this morning really early. Was playing a little bit of a. I was playing a little bit of a video game. I was playing 2K25, and then I decided, you know what, I'm gonna lay back down a little bit, and I was checking my phone, just looking at some news. I was looking at some. I was looking at Titans training camp stuff. Anybody knows I'm a Tennessee Titan fan, so I was looking up that, and one of my good friends that I know, James, wrote, "Oh my God, Hulk Hogan died." And naturally, when someone tells you that, they have some of these little people that do like clickbaits, and they do this thing where this person died, that person died, and I was already reeling from Ozzy. You know, loved Ozzy Osbourne, already reeling from that. So I went on Google, typed in Hulk Hogan, and when I saw that TMZ report, I knew it was true. And I'm wearing the Black Hulk and Mania shirt. This is an older shirt that I have actually. But words can't describe, but I'm gonna do my best being on here. When I saw the report, I bawled like a baby. I cried. I bawled. I'm still heartbroken, and it's still devastating. And I think as fans of entertainment, fans of professional wrestling, when you see being 43 years old, I got into watching professional wrestling to my dad, and and Hulk Hogan were my idols growing up. They're still my idols. Um, Regardless of what you think of Hogan personally and his racial comments that he said back in the day, or which political outbursts he had, this is not about that. This is about a human being. This is about a man who transcended this sport of professional wrestling, the sports entertainment. There's been, and it's arguably because some younger people think John Cena is the greatest. Some think that Shawn Michaels is. Some think Ric Flair is. Some think Undertaker is, and I love Taker. Everybody knows that I like Taker too. But you cannot take away from the you can't take away from what Hulk Hogan has done for this business. He helped put professional wrestling on the map. The first man to ever be on the cover of Sports Illustrated magazine. Terry Gene Bollea was born in Augustus, Georgia. Moved to Florida. Was going to be he was part of a rock and roll band. He was a bass guitarist. And he was trained by Masuda in professional wrestling. He was going to quit. Then he got his break a little bit. He came into WWF or WWF at the time, run by Vince McMahon Sr. He came in. He had that little nice cape and was managed by Freddie Blassie, classy Freddie Blassie. And who are younger, you may not remember classy Freddie Blassie, but one of the greatest managers of all time, really, really good, iconic Hall of Famer. And so Hulk gets this offer of a lifetime by Sylvester Stallone to be in Rocky 3. And we all know the Thunder Lips character was, well, all my love slays out there. Thunder Lips is here in the flesh, baby. And so then he went to AWA, Memphis, and then Minnesota Wrestling from Vern Gagne. He started becoming a baby face and coming out to Eye of the Tiger from the band Survivor from Rocky 3. That's when Hulkamania was born. It was in Minnesota, not the WWF, not the WWE. Vince saw dollar signs. Vince bought the company, Vince Jr., Vince McMahon, that we all know now, bought the company from his dad, was going after the top stars in professional wrestling, and he saw Hulk Hogan, and he brought Hogan back. And then in January of 1984, Hulk Hogan in Madison Square Garden, that right there, that building, Madison Square Garden, Hulk Hogan and Hulkamania just connects. He beat Iron Sheik. It became his first ever championship. And he held that belt from 1984 all the way to February of 1988. And during that time, he was running wild. I mean, he was running, they were doing 2 shows a night. The very first ever WrestleMania, him and Mr. T versus Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff. At that time, you had Ozzy Osbourne there. You had Muhammad Ali, Cyndi Lauper. They went all out for that WrestleMania. That WrestleMania could have bankrupted the McMahons if it didn't pan out the way it was supposed to. But Hogan and them, they WrestleMania 1 came out, and then WrestleMania 2, he had that cage match with King Kong Bundy. At that time, Hogan always fought like larger than life men. But nobody larger and nobody bigger and nobody meaner and tougher than Andre the Giant. WrestleMania 3, I remember as a kid, we ordered that pay-per-view. And I was already at awe of the Macho Man Ricky Steamboat Intercontinental title match. But watching Hogan face Andre, and Andre was in bad shape, had the back brace. And Andre was also bigger at the time because Hogan slammed him back in the late 70s, but Andre was lighter then. And watching the Andre documentary on HBO, you learned that Hogan wrote that entire match. He didn't know what was going to happen. Vince didn't know what was going to happen. Andre just kept telling him, "Don't worry." And they called the match exactly the way Hulk put it on paper. Hogan didn't know if he could slam Andre, but he did. And when he did, years later, he tore a lot of that muscle that was right there underneath his bicep. But it was at that point that Andre did the favors. They billed Andre as a man who hadn't lost in 15 years. They built Hulk as even more mega stream than he is. And Hogan was the first ever wrestler to have his own cartoon, Rocket Wrestling. Hogan was everywhere. He was in Dolly Parton's country music video. He was the very first ever professional wrestler to host Saturday Night Live. A lot of people don't know that. He was everywhere. He was part of Mr. T's A-Team show, a few episodes. He was everywhere. So then he decides him and Vince McMahon writes No Holds Barred, and I know some of y'all have talked about Hogan's movies. Okay, we all know that. But No Holds Barred came out. Some of that was filmed here in Nashville, actually. But he took a crack at acting after that. His first ever single acting role before Rocky, after Rocky 3, of course. But and then Hogan guest starred on Gremlins 2. Was in the theater telling them, "Okay, you guys, all these people don't want no gremlins running around." Just doing all that. And what was great about it was then Hogan started getting into. He had one of the biggest. I love that matchup between him and Macho Man at WrestleMania 5. The Mega Powers exploded. Miss Elizabeth dead stacked right in the middle of this. And but then we got to the second biggest match. Thanks, Rim. Appreciate it, man. So then we get to the biggest match. One of the second biggest matches I've seen Hogan in is WrestleMania 6, Toronto Sky Dome. Hogan and Warrior, title for title. And when I saw that pay-per-view, I cried, man, because I didn't expect Hogan to lose. And Warrior won. And Hogan went on to make, Suburban Commando, and then he went on to make Mr. Nanny. And then he had the big matches. Then he had, WrestleMania 7 with Slaughter, and then we all thought he was gone. WrestleMania 8, he fought Sid, which should have been Hogan and Flair. I still say to this day, I thought Vince dropped the ball on that one. It should have been Hogan and Flair. But then Hogan leaves. Comes back WrestleMania 9. Him and Bruce and Barbara Beefcake try to go for the tag titles. And then it all happened. Hogan decides to come out there after Brett lost. Hogan went out there, beat Yokozuna, and then drops the title to Yokozuna, King of the Ring. There's a lot of controversy about that whole thing with Brett, but I'm not here to talk about controversy. I'm not here to talk about the bullshit or he held this person down. He did this, he did that. We're talking about a man who transcended this business. Everybody talks about how AEW and WWE and TNA they talk about all these people, and Hulk's the guy who really transcended what we have today is what you get from him. And I'm still reeling from it. I like to think that this was a bad dream. They always say that people die in threes. You hear about the guy that, Jamal Malcolm Warner, who played Theo in the Cosby Show, had that accidental drowning, and then Ozzy, and now Hulk. And it's like one of these things where you're just like, wow, it's surreal. And they always say you don't want to have an idol. You don't want to do that because sometimes you'll get disappointed. I could tell you right now, when I first bumped into Hogan as a kid, I was not disappointed. I am disappointed because he just opened up a wrestling shop here in Tennessee. It was in a town, and it was in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Beautiful place. Beautiful vacation spot, really good mountains, Smoky Mountains. And he just opened it here about a couple of weeks ago. And I was waiting because usually with a grand opening like that, Hulk usually appears at the wrestling shop because he has one in Orlando. He has another one in Clearwater. He has that Hogan karaoke. And then he actually opened up a restaurant in New York that's right across the street from Madison Square Garden. Let me look at this, guys, here. Let's see. Have you ever noticed that when celebrities pass away, it's sometime in, yeah, Yep, absolutely. Whoa. Sorry about that, bright lights, bright light. But no, he actually that's true, Rim. And that's just the biggest thing about this whole situation, and what hurts about it is, he had the Hulk Hogan Real American Beer. I know he was going around towns, states, cities promoting that. I was hoping for him to come here. I was really looking forward to seeing him because I really had a lot of things that I wanted to say to him. As a fan, I really wanted to let him know how I really felt about the situation and how I really how he changed my life, how he really changed me as a person. I still train every day. At least I try to every day. I still take my vitamins. I still pray to God. I do all the things that Hulk taught you to do. And yeah, Hogan was not a perfect guy. He had his flaws. But then again, we're all human. We all have our flaws. We're not perfect in any means necessary. People make mistakes. People do things that. But in the professional wrestling business, you have to look out for number one. And no one can not deny that Hogan didn't look out for number one. He looked out for himself. That's because he had a business degree. He knew how to swimming around the water. But then, what's interesting is Hogan went to WCW. Flair and Bischoff talked to him while he was filming Thunder in Paradise. People will say what they want about that show. I actually think that show is very underrated. I really loved Thunder in Paradise. That boat was badass. I mean, that's just how I looked at it. That boat was badass. And so then Hogan joins WCW, faces Ric Flair at Bash at the Beach in '94, wins his first ever WCW title. But then you notice the fans starting to turn on Hogan. They started booing him. Well, that's because they also looked at him as a WWE guy. He wasn't really a WCW guy. So they looked at him. Yeah, I remember when Sting was a bad guy as well on there. I don't think the WCW fans, because they were more Southerner fans, they looked at Hogan as the enemy. So then, fast forward to '96, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash got out of their WWE contracts. They didn't re-sign. So they all signed up with WCW. Scott Hall appears. Then Kevin Nash appears. Then the match is set. Bash at the Beach, 1996. Kevin Nash, Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall versus Lex Luger, Sting, and the Macho Man. And then early in the match, Luger gets knocked out. So then it becomes just a 2-on-2 match with Sting and Savage versus Hall and Nash. And then all of a sudden, here he comes. Hogan comes down with the red and yellow, and Bobby Heenan screwed it up, going asking which side is he on. Hogan comes out there, chases Hall and Nash off, moves the referee, and then bam, drops that leg drop on Macho Man, and then drops it again. Scott Hall does the 1, 2, 3. Mean Gene comes out there. You can't have Mean Gene without Hogan. And they were throwing I remember that paper. They were throwing everything in the ring, garbage everywhere. And Hogan just let it rip. That I stuck it to the fans. I was in it for the money. You fans can stick it, brother. And the New World Order was formed, and Hogan reinvented himself, became one of the coolest bad guys that I've ever seen. And I love the Hollywood gimmick. Now, a lot of people ask me which part of Hogan I liked. I love the Hollywood gimmick of Hogan. He was bad. He was actually a better wrestler as a heel than he was a face, believe it or not. At least in my opinion, he was. He was that guy that NWO made wrestling cool. NWO was doing things like coming out there, attacking people at the MGM, ramming Rey Mysterio's head into the trailer. God, man, WCW was badass. And it's still badass. You know, you can go on YouTube. They have the WCW YouTube channel now. And I love it. And it's one of those things where, you know, with every bad guy, there has to be a good guy. And, you know, Sting and Hogan in 97 was probably one of the best builds that I've seen in professional wrestling. Now, the match could have been better. You know, Hogan was injured and Sting hadn't wrestled in about a year and a half. So there was some rust there. But the build for that match, the build for Hogan and Sting, still to this day is one of my favorite builds of all time. And Sting and Hogan just... What'd you say there, Rem? If you're a longtime wrestling fan, how do you not know NWO for life? Exactly. I am NWO for life. And you know what's interesting? Then in 99, Hogan finally decides to become good. He comes off this injury. The NWO Elite, the Wolfpack Elite. And Hogan starts hulking up again. He starts doing some Hogan mannerisms while he's still Hollywood. And then he finally turned. I remember that August of 1999. Goldberg's in the ring, Sting's in the ring. They're going to be facing Steiner, Sid, and Nash. And all of a sudden, the real the American-made WCW version starts playing. Hulk comes out back in that red and yellow again, and that crowd goes nuts. Fast forward, Hogan's back out there with Bash at the Beach, 2000. And remember who walked into a Gold's Gym, into Sting and Warrior's Gym, kind of inspired Hogan to get into wrestling. Right. Absolutely right. Let me see here. Yes. All right. So then the whole thing happened Bash at the Beach with Hogan and Jeff Jarrett and Vince Russo, and that was a big old mess. And in 2002, Vince McMahon does that promo, says he's going to kill professional wrestling, he's going to kill what he created. NWO in the back of the chair. Then I remember No Way Out, Hogan, Hall and Nash comes out. And Hogan's getting that big giant pop because they remembered the man who helped build WWE. WWE would not be where it's at right now. And you WWE fans have to understand it. You can say what you want about Hogan, but WWE would not be where it's at right now if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan. Sure, you can think Stone Cold, you can say The Rock, you can say John Cena, whatever. But if it was not for Hulk Hogan, WWF/WWE would not be where it is at. Period. Oh, and Poston, I sent you the link, but I don't know if you got it or not. So, if you're still watching or not. But then, they built Hogan. I remember Raw in 2002. Rock and Austin versus the NWO. Seeing Hogan in there in the ring with Austin for the first time. That's a dream match that I wanted to see. I wanted to see Stone Cold. I wanted to see Hogan. But they put Hogan with The Rock. WrestleMania 18. Skydome again. The way that crowd just... The energy in that match. And that match was not necessarily a 5-star match. But when they both were looking at each other, they turned. And then both turned, and the way that crowd ate everything up and turned on The Rock and Hogan, it's like Then he comes out and gets that title match with Triple H. Even though your hero has left this world, man, I would still go to his beach shop just to say you went. You can actually pay a tribute when you get there. Absolutely. And I still plan to. You know, this crazy little world, I'm going to put it on here. Let me see. This is for anybody that wants to pay homage to Hogan. I left the link right here. So, but if you're coming in here to do some shit that you ain't supposed to do, ain't the day to fuck with me. But yeah, he comes back to WWE, has that little unite. He beats Triple H in Backlash. I remember I was at the Judgment Day pay-per-view between Hogan and Undertaker. That was fun. You know, getting to see two of my favorites go at it. That was pretty cool. You know, Hogan ended up making Brock Lesnar look like $1,000,000, bleeding from the mouth. Brock's over there bear hugging him and just ragdolling him. And then I got Hogan's first ever autobiography book. Yeah, you know, I was at the I was at two WCW pay per views, Starcade '96 with Hogan and Piper, and then I was at the very last WCW pay per view, Super Brawl, Scott Snyder versus Kevin Nash, 2001, right before the doors closed, and that was kind of sentimental for me, but. I've had a chance to say that I've seen Hogan live on numerous occasions, as a kid and as a teenager and as an adult. Those are three things that you never really get a chance to do. And I remember the week of my wedding with me and Melissa, me and Mel. We went to we were in New Jersey, and we went to Jersey's, was it Jersey City Beach or the
Ocean City.
Ocean City.
Or Atlantic City.
We were walking the boardwalk. I wanted to
Atlantic City.
Yeah, walk into this boardwalk with her, and there was a store there. It's like a memorabilia store, and I still remember to this day. I saw the in glass. They had the Hogan Sports Illustrated magazine, and I said to myself, I should have gotten it at that time. Didn't think about it. See, ladies and gentlemen, when you think about something, don't think about it. Do it. You know what I'm saying? Don't even think about it. Don't be like, oh, well, I don't know if I have the money. I don't know if I can do this. And I guess at that moment, you do it or you don't. You'll live to regret it. And I shouldn't have gotten it. And I should have gotten it a chance to get my hands on it, but I didn't. And that's some good shit, man. It was. And then, you know, exactly. If you're thinking about never going to an event or not thinking about going at any of your favorite, doesn't, you never know. And you know what? And that's true, man. What Remington's saying there, what Juggalo Gamer is saying, is actually 110%. If you get that opportunity, you go. And I was so bummed out because, you know, SummerSlam came in 2022, and usually they do that StarCast wherever SummerSlam's at, and they had all those names there, and I was hoping, you know, Flair was doing one of his last matches at the Municipal Auditorium, and I was hoping that Hulk would have been a part of that, but he wasn't, and it was like, but you know, that's the thing about life. You never know. You never know what you got when it's gone. You could be in the best shape of your life, and if it's your time to go, it's your time to go. Um, that's something that a lot of people don't understand. That's why you gotta live life to the fullest. You gotta live life the way that you want to, because if you don't, you're gonna die with regret. And who wants to do that? I sure as hell don't. I don't want to live life in regret because, and I don't, and a lot of stuff in my life I don't regret, and there's a lot of stuff in my life that I've made mistakes on, and I've learned from them. I moved on from them. But the one thing I can honestly say about Hogan, when he in 2005 they put him in the WWE Hall of Fame, I was so happy about that. I was like, wow, that is just cool. We're gonna be getting on a wrestle Oh, okay. You never want to look at life as it is, and when Hogan was in the Hall of Fame, they had that big old thing. Hogan came out WrestleMania 21, had that match with Shawn Michaels, had that feud with Michaels, and then he came back and had that thing with Randy Orton, which I still think Hogan should have put Orton over. Uh, but 2 days after, yeah, man, that is true, man. Central Man Network, this place 2 days after Ozzy Osbourne, yeah, and they say death comes in threes, bro. It really does, and it's kind of eerie when when a celebrity dies and then another one dies, and then you're like, okay, who's next? Never in my wildest dreams that I think I would wake up and then get a text from my good friend and telling me that, oh my god, Hogan died. I still can't wrap my head around the fact that he's gone, because all the guys next to him are dead. Like Piper was dead, Savage is gone, Warrior's gone. All these warriors, all these people that we grew up watching, that we when Hogan died, I'm not gonna lie, guys, a part of my childhood died with me. And when I heard this morning, I was crying like a babbling brook. It was tough, and it's still tough. I mean, I'm holding back tears now. I never thought that I would. Wrestling does have a high rate of death. They do, and unfortunately, see, wrestling nowadays is different. But wrestling then, you were partying, you were doing drugs, you were drinking, you were at strip clubs, you were doing these things, and yep, when a hero dies, a part of you goes away. And in 2022, one of my biggest heroes passed away, and that's my dad. But Hogan has been a house. This is how much Hulk Hogan means to my family. Ever since I've watched professional wrestling, my older brother, Jeremy, and me have always been Hogan fans. My mom loved him. My dad loved him. And it was Hogan was our guy in his house. In our house growing up, Hogan was our dude. Through thick and thin, Hulk Hogan was our guy. I uh, I remember having you remember the wrestling buddies. I had the Hulk Hogan one. It goes, ow, my nose, and all that. That wrestling buddy thing is fucking cool. I don't care what anybody says. That is just some cool ass shit to have that. You know, uh, you know, Now, I will say it does, Matt. It does come in threes. I mean, honestly, I think last year there was like a celebrity that died and another one and another one. I can't remember who it was exactly, but I feel horrible. And this is something else you got to do too. Stop holding on to grudges. Stop holding on. Yeah, the bashing buddies. Yes, that's exactly what the name is. Thank you, Remington. But stop holding on to grudges. Stop holding on to hate with people because Hogan passed away not knowing his grandchildren. Brooke Hogan stopped talking to both her parents, had no ties with them whatsoever. Hogan never got to see his grandchildren. That hurts. When you hear about something like that, you're like, man, you didn't get the chance to see your kids? Because when you hold on to grudges and you think, I'll rekindle with them sooner or later, it'll be all right. You don't know. We don't know. There's an invisible timestamp above our heads. We don't know when we're going to pass away. We can get into our car, we can go into somewhere tomorrow, and boom, we don't know. And that's the scary part about death. Death is a part of life, yes, but that is the scariest part about it is not knowing. And like I said, there were some rumblings. Well, when you sit here and hold on to grudges your whole life, you're always going to be miserable. That's true, man. A lot of these people holding on to grudges on YouTube is this it's stupid. It's like a retarded fight. No one's going to win that fight. Arguing online, no one wins that fight. You make yourself look like an idiot when you do that. And to me, I look at it like this. If there's a couple of things that Hulk Hogan has taught me in life, is always have that love for God. Have God in your life, which I do. Now I don't go to church on a regular basis and stuff like that, but I'm very spiritual. I always, I've always believed. When I pray, I actually have had my prayers answered on numerous occasions, and I noticed that not to take life for granted and to always understand that you're going to be a human, you're going to make mistakes, it's going to happen. And Hogan's made some mistakes. I'm not saying the guy is a squeaky clean dude. Who the fuck is? I'm not a squeaky clean guy by any stretch of the means. I've done some things I'm not proud of. We all have. And it's one of those things where that's what separates the men from the boys. The men who know and accept the fact that they make mistakes and that they can come there, held their head high, and get on here and be like, you know what? I fucked up. I made a mistake. And I'm sorry. That's a man. A boy is the one who's like not wanting to admit they made mistakes. They sit there, they hide behind their little keyboards, and they say bullshit. And I have seen some heinous shit being said about Hogan right now. It was on TikTok, and I've seen some people say, "Oh, well, he just had to not let Ozzy have the last laugh," and that doesn't work for me, brother. Just all this bullshit, and I'm just like, dudes. No matter what he's done in business, and yeah, Hogan's held people back. Yes, Hogan has politicked his way to stuff. I get it. I get it. Hogan's done some pretty heinous stuff that he's not doing, but let's talk about stuff that Hogan has done. He put over a rookie in Bill Goldberg in 1998 in the Georgia Dome, around 40, 50,000 plus, on Nitro, not on a pay per view, but on free television. He dropped the title to an unknown in Goldberg because Hogan saw money in him. A lot of us can say what we want about Goldberg, but Goldberg wouldn't be who he was if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan. It's And then, people go back to the whole last time we saw Hogan on television was on Raw, January, of the premiere of Netflix. And that LA crowd was booing him. And they were booing him mainly due to politics. Hogan also put over The Rock at WrestleMania 18. Hogan reluctantly, but did anyways, put the Warrior over at WrestleMania 6 because he knew Warrior wasn't ready. But he did it anyways. Hogan put Brock Lesnar, made Brock Lesnar into a monster before Brock beat The Rock at SummerSlam in 2002. Hulk put Kurt Angle over, King of the Ring, 2002. Hogan's really never shown that he's tapped out as a good guy. We seen him tap out when he was Hollywood, but you never saw him tap out, and Kurt Angle had him in that ankle, and Hogan put Kurt Angle over. He did put over Hogan. Hogan did put over Undertaker in Survivor Series 91. However, controversy with that was Hogan saying, "Oh, my neck," afterwards. And, there's some controversy, yes. But, and then, what happened was Hogan decides to go to TNA. Now, I know that I loved TNA back in the day. I still like TNA now. TNA pretty much, when they changed that 6-sided ring, I was upset at first, like everybody else. I'm like, man, did they just get rid of that 6-sided ring? But I remember going to TNA Lockdown in Nashville in 2012. And I still have a video on my Facebook of Hogan and Flair. I got to see that little confrontation. Still gives me goosebumps seeing that. Or goose pimples, as people want to call them. But there's a lot of... And then, Hogan had that show, Hogan Knows Best, which I do have all the seasons except for season 4 on DVD. And, Hogan's been married 3 times, went through that shit with Linda, was married a second time for a while, and then he married Sky, his new wife, who he's been married to for about 2 years, maybe. And when the reports are, when Hogan, they got the call, that cardiac arrest, that Hogan was actually put on a stretcher and into the ambulance. So obviously Hogan didn't die then. He must have died at the hospital. So, and I want to say this, fuck you, Bubba Love Sponge. The fact that you did that whole thing with Hogan and your wife and put it out there and Gawker and all that bullshit, fuck you. And then it was a couple weeks ago that Bubba Love Sponge came out and admitted that Hogan was on his deathbed. They heard it wasn't good and blah, blah, blah. And then Sky Hogan came out, his wife came out, said that wasn't true. And Jimmy Hart just yesterday, Jimmy Hart was saying Hogan was doing well, and they were at Hogan's shop doing the whole karaoke thing, and Hogan was in good spirits. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. You don't know. It's a sad way, man. When you see Macho Man had that cardiac arrest when he was driving his wife in the car, and then he ran into stuff. And then when the Warrior knew his time was up and he made that speech on Raw saying, Every man beats his final beat and then gets home and has a cardiac arrest. That's just, we can do everything we can to protect this part of us. I try to eat clean. I've been drinking more water. I've been, you walk 10, 20, 10, 15,000 steps a day. You try to do what you do with your body, but when it's your turn, it's your turn. There's no ends buts about it. This is one of those things where I'm glad I wasn't at work today. I had the day off. If I would have been at work, this would have been, I don't know. I probably would have had to leave early because that, it really broke my heart, man. It really did. Still breaks my heart. Because we as wrestling fans, we grew up with these men. We grew up with these guys. We grew up with our favorites, and they fed our childhoods. They're part of our teenage years. They're part of our adult years. People can say what they want about professional wrestling, but professional wrestling brought me a lot it got me out of a lot of dark shit. It was there for me. And I still love it. And not just WWE. I love all of it. I love AEW. I love TNA. I love them all. And it's just one of those things where, as wrestling fans, we have to come together. When Hogan's a soldier. He's one of our boys. When I look at wrestling fans, I look at it as one of the boys. We are one of the boys. That's our dude. We lost a lot of greats. We lost Macho Man. We lost the Warrior. We lost Piper. We lost, you lost China. We lost Owen Hart. We've lost Stu Hart. We've lost Eddie Guerrero. We've lost a lot of people. And, Kurt Hennig. It's just, to me, I just saw Ric Flair's, before I came out here, I saw Ric Flair's interview on TMZ, and Flair was bawling. Him and Hulk were really good friends. And when Flair had that point where Flair almost died, Hogan was at his bedside, reading him scriptures from the Bible. Hogan was there for Rick, when a lot of people didn't want to be there for Ric Flair. And Ric Flair is right. The social media is a cruel fucking place. It's a cesspool of bullshit. And for all you people who are hating on Hogan because of his political part, fuck you. Seriously, fuck you. What's interesting about politics with this whole thing is politics used to be back in the day, you can like who you wanted to like and everybody be okay with it. Now it's like you can't like this person without some kind of retaliation, and it's bullshit. It's absolute fucking bullshit. And people want to say, well, Hogan made a racial comment. And let me ask you, the people that have ever said that, how you could have been drunk one night, you could have been doing weed or whatever, marijuana, whatever you want to say. Who's to say that you weren't with your boys or you weren't privately behind the scenes? You haven't said anything out of the way. But because he's a celebrity, plastered everywhere. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, WWE better do a big fucking tribute for Hulk Hogan, because if they don't, I'm done with it. And I'm done with them. And you think I'm joking, but I'm not. They posted a thing and saying, we're sorry to hear about that, but I want to see something on SmackDown or even Raw. I want to see some big tribute for him. I don't want no little picture and a little video thing. I want the wrestlers to come out there and they do a Tim Bell salute to him. because that motherfucker deserves it. Because WWE, the 60 plus years that it's been in this business, wasn't as popular as it was. It was they did the territories back in the early 80s, late 70s. Hogan made merchandise possible for wrestlers to have money with merchandise. I remember the Nintendo, the first ever WrestleMania video game on there. I remember, yeah, I bought one of Hogan's energy drinks back then. I bought one of his. I remember that little workout kit that he had. I had that as a kid. You know, it's now when I listen to Voodoo Child by Jimi Hendrix, I'm gonna smile, but I'm gonna cry. When I listen to Real American now, it's gonna hit differently. When I listen to American Made by WCW, it's gonna hit different. When I hear the NWO theme, it's gonna hit different. And I mean, Hogan's still the reason why I still got the little. Hogan's the reason why I got the pythons, man. You know, him and Arnold Schwarzenegger were the two of the main reasons why I started getting into weightlifting and I started doing what I needed to do. And even at 71 years old, Hogan looked good. All those 25-year back surgeries. You know, here's something for you. When Hogan was in TNA, and I saw this little shoot interview with Kevin Nash and Sean Waltman, a.k.a. Six, or X-Pac. Hogan had back surgery, 10 back surgeries while he was at TNA. He comes into the ring, still comes into the show with a back brace and crutches, and still does not miss a beat. That's how tough Hulk Hogan is. That's how tough Terry Bollea is. The man's went through so much shit, like teeth been knocked out. He couldn't see peripherally on this side of his eye. Can't straighten up his arms this way. And that's because he broke down his body, bled, sweat, teared to entertain all of us. To entertain those millions of NWOites, millions of Hulkamaniacs all around the world. And if you don't think Hogan could wrestle, watch his Japan shit, okay? You see a totally different guy. But the Japan style pro wrestling is different than American style pro wrestling. It's always been different. As a matter of fact, Hogan, when he had that knee surgery in '99 in WCW, when they had that four-way between him, DDP, Sting, and Flair, Hogan had that knee injury for so long that it finally just gave up. The man was walking around, barely able to walk around, walking with a cane and sticks and everything like that. But when he came out to talk to us, you could tell how much he loved us. Despite whether or not some of us were booing him. And I just saw Mel just showed me Brooke finally got a chance to tell her dad she loved him on a phone call. That was nice. It was nice to hear that, you know. Maybe Hulk's been sick for a while. I don't know. There's probably will be more reports coming out. I'm sure there will be. I just don't. I can't picture a world without the immortal Hulk Hogan in it. I can't picture it. I still trying to wrap my head around it. I'm still trying to wrap my brain around it. It's like, how do you look at professional wrestling now? It's like you just, it's one of those things where if you're a wrestling fan, sometimes Hogan wasn't your cup of tea, and that's okay. That was okay. Everybody had their own favorite, and that's what's great about professional wrestling. You can have multiple favorites. You can have multiple people that you like. But Hogan intertwined with a lot of people. Hogan was an idol for John Cena. You know, even though he didn't want to do that feud with Billy Kidman back in the Millionaires Club and the New Blood, Bischoff said on 83 weeks, Hulk still did what was right and still did that program with Billy Kidman, even though it was not believable for a 160-pound Billy Kidman to be beating up a 300-pound guy. It just didn't look believable, but they made it work. I feel bad now because Hulk was about to start that real all-star wrestling with Eric Bischoff and another guy. They did that little NWO promo for it. Freestyle wrestling, they were going to do it as. And I don't know what's going to happen with that. Hogan had the Real American Beer. Like I said, he just opened up a new wrestling shop here in Tennessee. It's about 3.5 hours from here. And I still plan on going to visit it. And I really want to look at the memorabilia and have it just. I know it's expensive as fuck there from what I've been reading, but it'd be worth it. And I look at a guy. I look at Hulk Hogan over the years, and I just see a man who all those chair shots he took to the head. That's why he said brother a lot, because he couldn't remember people's names. And that I'm not good with names either. I'm good with faces. And I can remember what you look like, but I just sometimes even I have an issue with trying to remember people's names. It's not one of my strongest suits. But I can tell you right now, Hulk Hogan is still my hero. He will always be my hero. He will always be a guy. Him and Taker both will always be my guys. Even to the day I die. When I don't know. And that's the part about life. Even though death is a part of life, we don't know. And it's, I know I'm rambling on about that, but we really don't know. It could be tomorrow. It could be the next day. It could be then. It could be 10 years from now, 20 years from now. But I don't want to live my life in any regrets. I don't want to live my life in a way of holding on to grudges with people and just because I know how being angry it is, and it's not a fun feeling, and it's not a fun feeling to have any hate in your body at all, because that's just it brings you down, it brings everything down, and your body doesn't need that, your mind doesn't need that. And I was proud of Hulk, man. Hulk was starting to lose he was starting to lose some weight. He was starting to look good. I'm sure it broke his heart when he went out there and on Netflix premiere and got booed the hell out of. I'm sure it broke his heart. But as a businessman and as a guy who's been in this business for so long, he shrugged it off. And that's what you do. If someone hates you or doesn't like you, shrug this shit off. Fuck them. And I know that Solomon, what's that guy? That Solomon sounds off. I know he hates Hulk. Hopefully, he won't do a video saying that shit. But I know he's one of the big wrestling guys on YouTube. I know he said some stuff. I feel bad for Kevin Nash. You know, after losing Scott Hall and now you lost Hulk. The NWO now is. I just want to thank. I want to thank Hulk for entertaining us over the years. I want to thank Hulk for putting wrestling on the map. I want to thank Hogan for giving other wrestlers opportunities. His contract, his money that he made wrestlers more money. He helped with the merchandise sales, ticket sales. He actually helped wrestlers learn how to negotiate their wrestling contracts. And then when he knew that he was stale, he changed the business by turning heel and forming the NWO, which the NWO to me is one of the biggest factions of all time. It's arguably you can say the Horsemen. People will say the Horsemen, but to me, there ain't nobody cooler than the NWO. And I don't give a damn what you say. The stuff that Hulk and Kevin Nash and Hall were doing, like the two Nitros when they came on there and they were beating up everybody, spray painting them, and you know that was some realistic shit. And during that time, that was realistic shit. I was like, whoa, all right. But what made it work was the fact that Scott Hall and Kevin Nash were WWF guys. And Hogan was the biggest WWF guy. So it made it work. I can't possibly know how his family's doing. I know Jimmy Hart's been his business manager for a lot of years. I mean, the one thing that makes him so great for me is the fact that he's not a flawless guy. He's got flaws. We all got flaws, and we don't get those opportunities to. So my thing to everybody is today is don't take life so seriously. Go out and do shit that you want to do. Buy what you want to buy. Cheer for whoever you want to cheer. Boo for whoever the fuck you want to boo to. Love life. Stop fucking around with each other. Stop holding grudges. Learn to forgive. You don't have to forget. You don't have to be friends with that person. But forgive. Move on. There's some things that happened to me a couple years ago that I've moved on from. And I've forgiven this situation. I haven't forgotten it, but I've forgiven the situation. I don't live in that past about what ifs or anything anymore because that's just what if is just nothing. What if I would have done this? What if I would have done that? It doesn't matter. What you did in that moment is what you did in that moment. You can either learn to accept it or you can let it control you. That's the thing that I've learned from Hulk. Watching his interviews, talking about his place, his love for God, getting back into the church and just things like that. He changed himself. Yeah. He told some tall tales. Whoopie-doo. Haven't we all exaggerated some kind of bullshit before? I know I have. I know we all have. I mean, but to hold that against the guy just because he's told some tales, come on. Really? Really? You're gonna hold grudges against somebody because he told a tale. You're gonna hold grudges over a man because he decided he was gonna represent a candidate as a president of the United States of America. What kind of life do you live in where you want to do something like that? So what? So what that he came out there and he supported Donald Trump? Who gives a fuck? It's his prerogative. It's his life. It's whatever he wanted to do. Just like it's anybody else's prerogative in life to like the Democratic Party. I mean, it's your life. It's your life to do whatever it is you want to do. But at the end of the day, to me, Hulk Hogan will be one of the biggest names of professional wrestling. Probably the biggest name in professional wrestling. And if there ever was a Mount Rushmore, Hogan should definitely be on there. And I don't want to even hear Bret Hart go over there and make these little negative comments about Hogan too. I'm like, Bret Hart's a bitter man. Bret Hart needs to watch this interview. Bret Hart needs to watch this. Grow the fuck up, Bret. So what? You wasn't as big as Hulk Hogan. So what? Hogan didn't want to put you over in SummerSlam in '93. Fuck off. Because living your life in grudges and living your life in hate like that, not only does it affect you spiritually, it affects you emotionally and it affects you physically. I can honestly say now that Hogan doesn't have to deal with all these injuries that he's dealt with over the years. He's able to be free. He's able to rest. He's able to rest easily now. And although selfishly I want him back, selfishly I wanted to see him before. As an adult, I really wanted a chance to meet him again and tell him how much he meant to me. But I know he knows that. One of my biggest things I remember on Twitter, which is now X, I posted this photo of me showing my guns and how hard I was working on getting my biceps that way, and Hogan retweeted it. Still one of the biggest highlights in my time with Hulk. It really was. But if you have a chance, if you're a wrestling fan, you don't have to be a wrestling fan. You could be a music fan, movie fan. If you have a chance to meet your idol or a chance to see your idol live, you fucking do it. You do it by any means necessary. Because you never know how long that idol of yours has left. Look at Remington, Juggalo Gamer. He got a chance to see Sting's last match. He went out there and saw it. You know, my father-in-law is a huge Beatles fan. But he's been to a lot of Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr concerts. It's one of those things. Mel is a big Reba McEntire fan. She's seen Reba a bunch of times. I can honestly say that I have seen Hulk Hogan live at least over 15 times. I seen him twice as a kid. I saw him a bunch of times as a teenager because I went to a bunch of nitros and so I got a chance to see that. I got the chance to see him as an adult twice. There's nothing like it, man. That energy. When you see Hogan live, there is an energy that's not out of this world. It's out of this world. It's an experience that if you're a wrestling fan, if you're a Hogan fan, you will understand what I'm trying to say here. But there is just something about the aura of him that just resonates around the whole entire arena. Whether it's positive or negative, you can say what you want about the guy. But Hulk Hogan is, to me, probably the greatest name in professional wrestling. I'm not saying he's the greatest by his skill set and whatever, because Hogan knew who he was as a man. He knew that he was an entertainer. Hogan knew how to sell like a motherfucker. And He's been in there with some of the greatest wrestlers of all time. He's been in there with Jerry Lawler, Andre the Giant, Sting, Lex Luger, Diamond Dallas Page, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, The Ultimate Warrior, Goldberg, Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Kevin Sullivan, Kurt Hennig, Chris Jericho, Kurt Angle, Triple H, The Rock, Shawn Michaels, Randy Orton, The Undertaker, Roddy Piper, Paul Orndorff, King Kong Bundy, Big John Studd, Nikolai Volkov, Honky Tonk Man, The Iron Sheik, Tony Atlas, Ted DiBiase, Yokozuna, Paul White, the Giant. What else am I looking at here? He's been in the ring with Jeff Jarrett, the Macho Man Randy Savage. Just a lot of great names that Hogan has mixed it up with over time. Hell, he ain't even been in the ring with AJ Styles back in TNA in 2010. Him and Abyss versus Ric Flair him and Abyss versus Ric Flair and AJ Styles. He's fought all over the world. He's wrestled all over the world. He's went from Hogan's wrestled in New Japan. He's wrestled in WWE, WWF. He's wrestled in WWF. He's wrestled in AWA. He's wrestled in WCW. He's wrestled in TNA. A two-time Hall of Famer. And I will not be guessing he'll probably be a three-time one whenever they do the matches now. I'm sure one of Hogan's matches will be in that category. He transcended. He made a bad guy look cool. The NWO did that. They made being a bad guy cool. I don't know. I wanted to say some more, but it's just a lot more that I'm not being able to get out. And I don't even know. I don't know if I will. Maybe I have to process this a lot more. But I can honestly tell you that I don't even know what I was going to say. I really don't. What's great is you have all this internet. You can go back. You can watch all the great moments of Hogan that I can watch. You know, I got some of his greatest matches on DVDs, and I can go back and I can look. And when I did do some wrestling, I imitated Hogan a lot. The way he punched, the way he moved, the way he sold stuff. Hogan was in my repertoire. And it's something that you'll never get, and Hogan was a good talker, he's the first guy to where you'd be like, ooh, you could rip open a shirt, and it's just, I'm just glad that he got to entertain a lot of us, and he helped a lot of us over the years. And despite what people say about him personally, and I know there's probably people that don't like him, and that's okay. I forgive you. And I'm sure Hulk forgives you too. But just remember, there's some things in your life that you've done that people probably haven't looked at you the same way.